I have a crazy story regarding Somali pirates and an Uber driver.
With one leg.
This is A Moment with Jay.
I just wanted to hop on the mic and say, I know the world been a little chaotic and everything. I just wanted to check and make sure everything good in the hood like sure, you know what I mean? Say out of the fam. Okay, let's get to work. What up?
Mic check, my mic check. Mic check, my mic check. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another A Moment with Jay. I do enjoy doing these podcasts. Um, the last week or so have been crazy, have been motivational, have been hectic, but I've gotten so much done. I've just been putting my head down and working, just creating, just creating, and it's been, I'm trying not to swear, especially at the beginning, because I've noticed that the videos do well when I don't swear at the beginning. Um, it's just been good to sit and create, no matter what the mood, no matter what's going on, just create. And also to be more realistic, that being said, I got lots to talk about today. I want to start off by talking about what happened today. Today, I finished mixing and mastering Olympus 2, which means Olympus 2 is available on my website right now. And it's $10 and you can buy it. And that means, and this is where I like that I have my own website. And because I have also, that being said, I also have a new song called Breathwork and Weed Smoke coming out this Friday, October 4th, which I'm very, very, very excited about. Um, and then there's just lots of music coming and lots of other cool stuff too that I can't talk about, but very, very cool stuff coming out. So it felt good to finish the Olympus 2 album. So the Olympus series is actually a three-part series. Road to Olympus was the mixtape with Warrior on it. If you don't know, Warrior's, my most popular song with over 100,000 streams. And then Olympus, which still, it's technically released. Olympus is technically released. You can buy the digital copy of my album for $10,000 of Olympus. So it's technically released. It's just only released there. And then you can still pre-order Olympus on vinyl. And the one thing I will say is Olympus on vinyl, there will only ever be 1,000 copies of these. There will only ever be 1,000 copies of these. And my whole thing is, if you buy one of these albums, I want to make it worth way more money than you paid for it. I already think the music on it is sick and it's priceless and whatever, but we have to throw a dollar value on it. But I'm talking about actual value. And this week, you'll see that because you get Olympus 2 already. Anyone who has bought the vinyl, um, you now have access to Olympus 2. You still don't have access to Olympus. You will once you get the vinyls, but that's still a little ways away. But you do get a free copy of Olympus 2. You also will get access to a exclusive members only page on my website as well, where there'll be exclusive music, exclusive sneak peeks of some crazy things we got in the works. So that is also really cool. And so if you buy Olympus on vinyl, there will be ton, a ton, a ton of value to come from that. So because that's it really means a lot. If you buy Olympus on vinyl, it really means a lot. If you buy even Olympus too, it means a lot to me too. But that's why it's priced at $10 because you're getting the music. That's what you're getting, you know. And there'll be music videos dropping soon and all kinds of stuff. Your boy has been working. So super hyped, super excited about that. I've really been working hard. I produced, mixed, and mastered most of the songs on Olympus 2. Shout out to my boy Andrew Menzak, who has helped with a couple. And I don't want to talk about each individual track too much because there will be more of a rollout as we keep going. And then once the vinyls arrive, which will be later on, then there'll be some more surprises. And so it's really cool. Make sure you get the vinyl because you don't want to miss out on all the cool stuff. Um, and I also wanted to talk about this on this podcast too. Is uh, I'll put the comment on the screen. I can't remember who it's from or what they said, but I just don't have it memorized. I will put it up on the screen, and they're asking how can the album how can an album cost $10,000? That's a great question. The beauty of art is subjective, and why is one painting worth more than the other painting if it took the same amount of materials and it took the painter the same amount of time? Yeah, and what if they're arguably the same skill level? Why is one worth more than the other? All kinds of reasons, all kinds of reasons. It could be who that person is. Maybe there's something unique and special about that person that translates into the art. Maybe there's something culturally significant about one's painting over the other one. Maybe there's a story weaved into one of them, or some sort of narrative weaved into one that makes it more valuable than the other one. Maybe this guy's more popular and no one knows who this other guy is, or girl, or they, them, whoever. All of these things make the price of art subjective. Now, why is my digital version of Olympus $10,000? Because the album is meant for vinyl. I just That's why I made Olympus too, to make a digital version to put out for y'all to listen to. But Olympus, it's only meant to be listened to on vinyl. And so if you want to listen to it that badly, that you want to listen to it in a way it's not supposed to be listened to, it's going to cost $10,000. That's what I that's what I think. So that's why it's there. Also, another reason why it's there is sometimes people have tons of resources, i.e., money, and your boy's broke. So, you know, it's also a way for people to invest and support me uh, in a huge, huge, huge way. And for that, you get something unique. You get the digital version of the album. No one else is ever going to get that. No one else is ever going to get that. And if you spend $10,000, you can get that. And you're really, really supporting me. Especially at this point in my career, at this point in my life, that would mean a whole lot. And I'm even contemplating, if you buy the digital version for $10,000, you might get a percentage of my profits for life. JusJrdn, not Prime Purpose because it gets a little bit different, but me as JusJrdn, me as a brand, me as an artist, I might give a percentage away, um, up to 5 or 10 people, I might give half or 1% of profits, um, because I think there's even more value in that as well. So that's something I'm contemplating as well. So we'll see. There's lots of things I'm still in the works about, and this is another thing I wanted to touch base on is why am I doing all of these things so differently than everyone else? Why are the things priced the way they're priced? Why do I have a $10 album that's the sequel to the first album, but the first album's $110,000? Because as much as I'm an artist, I'm also an entrepreneur. And I see people in the music industry do the same thing time after time after time again. They drop a single, they spend 250 to $1 million, 250,000 to $1 million promoting that single, making it, promoting, releasing that single, and I just am trying to find ways where I can create, provide value, and make a living enough where I can support myself and my family, all while. Hold on, I'm gonna try to. Damn it, man! There's these two flies, and I'm not even kidding. They're like mating on the table and then flying away. These. Sorry if that was loud. Anyways, I got into a deep point here. It's about doing things differently and trying to find, because I don't care about being popular. That's the biggest thing is I don't care about popularity. I like to create, I like to make things for people that like the things I make, and I like to make things to inspire other creators who want to make things. I was listening to this podcast, Nate Land podcast, and Nate Bargatze is a huge, huge comedian. He's a family friendly comedian. He's very clean, family friendly, and he is just building an empire, which is Nate Land. So he has a podcast, and now he's a stand up, and now he's a stand up, selling out stadiums, tens and tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people in a weekend. Selling probably millions of tickets a year, and he's also trying to get into movies and producing shows, and now he's producing and distributing other comedians um, stand-up specials and other comedians podcasts. So he's, and that's what I hope to do with PPM, is just to have this platform for creators to make and earn money. And and I'm really trying it out with JusJrdn, and I got my own podcast, and I shoot my own music videos. I and why do I do it all myself? Why is everything shot on my iPhone? Because I got no extra money to put into things. And yeah, I would love to have these huge teams of creatives and everything, but I don't right now. But I do have the power to create because I have a laptop and I have an iPhone. And with these two things, I was able to make 2 albums, working on a third album, countless music videos, weekly podcasts, with a $0 budget, with a zero dollar budget. I've accumulated hundreds and thousands of views on YouTube, hundreds of thousands of streams across music platforms, all with no money. So, and there's times where we're doing really good, and there's times where we're not. And there's times where we're doing okay, and then there's times that we're not. And it's a wave, and sometimes um it's I just want to create things and put them out into the world, and just because I don't have the budgets to do things the way I want to, or the skill sets even to make the kind of perfect music I think I can create with the right team doesn't mean that the things that I make right now are not valuable or should not be out there in the world. So that's why I am doing these things. So, and that even leads me to Olympus 2, because I'm like, man, there's three songs I've been waiting on getting them cleared so that I can release them, but there's been problems with clearing some of the samples and stuff. And all the other things I've pretty much produced by for myself or Andrew Menzak. Shout out to my boy Andrew Menzak, who produced pretty much almost everything I haven't produced that's out is produced by Andrew Menzak. He produced my whole first album, Life. He produced the tracks Dark Sky and Greatest on Olympus 2. He produced countless tracks on the original Olympus. You know, me and Andrew will hopefully always be making music together because he's my boy, man, and we just vibe. But there's some other producers things that I was trying to get cleared and stuff, and it was taking long. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just make a couple other tracks. Let's do things my way, and we'll put this out. So there. That being said, there might be an extended edition to Olympus 2 that comes out later on once I get these tracks cleared. So if that's the case, because there are three songs um, that I wanted on that album that won't be coming out with this because they just didn't get cleared. But I have always wanted to release a 7 track kind of concise album, and that's what Olympus 2 is. It's just, it's what I wanted it to be. So there are some songs, maybe even, um, man, these flies are, oh no, now it's in my freaking tea. Unfortunate. Man, these flies are killing me today. So yeah, there might be an Olympus 2 extended edition. But it's now on my website. We got the $10 Olympus 2. We got the Olympus on vinyl, and we got $10,000 edition one. So stay tuned because yeah, I think that's a cool thing to have the $10,000 digital one where I'm just trying to think out of the box. I'm just trying to do things. Yeah, if it fails, who cares? I'm gonna keep making things. I'm gonna keep doing things. It doesn't matter if things fail. And that's another thing I've been so motivated with just do, create, put out, learn from it. Do, create, learn, put out, learn from it. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just so motivated. I literally just finished mastering Olympus 2 right now, before this, and then it's just amazing what you can do in a day when you're determined. I had most of it mixed. I mastered all of the songs this morning, gave it all a listen through, uploaded everything, got the new songs, got it all registered, all the work. There's a bunch of work outside of it when you're a team of one. Two, I guess. Shout out to my mama, who will be doing a bunch of radio send outs and stuff. Um, lots of cool things. So new song coming October 4th. Make sure you grab Olympus 2 on the website, $10. The vinyl is $100. Pre-order it. It's coming later on. And then yeah, there's some really cool membership stuff coming through on the website, all kinds of things. Um, and if you got the vinyl, you should have already received an email from me about things, because that's the thing is if you have the vinyl, you'll be hearing about things first. That's also what it is all about. And then the podcast. Y'all are a close second. Y'all will get things because I appreciate everyone who listens to the podcast too. Um, so yeah. Uh, okay, yeah. Have we heard about the? I just have to talk about this real quick. Mozart dropped a new track recently. I guess they found sheet music or something of his. Mozart's been dead for so long. They found music of his in a library or something that no one knew of, and so he technically just dropped a new song, which I think is crazy. That's insane. I just had to touch on that point. I just had to touch on that point this podcast. Um, and now I got to get into these Uber drivers. So I got a call from a friend who needed help, which is a crazy situation in itself, but that's not my story to tell right now. And so I went to go help this person out, and I had to Uber to go help, and then I had to Uber back. It's just I'm not going to get into the details of it, but anyways, where the real story lies, anyways, is in the two Uber drivers. I'm just going to make sure that this thing is recording. Excellent. Yeah, where the real story is in these two Uber drivers. I'm going to start with the first one, and then I'm going to end with the second one. So I get into this Uber driver, chatting it up. I'm a talkative, you know, talkative guy, and interested in meeting people. So I'm asking about this dude's life, and tells me he's from India. Pardon me. And because I when someone's foreign, I always ask how they ended up in Edmonton, Alberta. And he was telling me I think originally went to New Brunswick for schooling, and then somewhere in Saskatchewan, and then Toronto, or maybe Toronto, Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan, and then ended up here. Essentially, for schooling and then for work, and then his cousin was here, and so he came to help out his cousin with work, and then he became an Uber driver. But dude's got his business, his I think something in business. I think is what I understood. And so this guy starts talking to me, and he's like, "Yeah, but I'm only driving Uber here for a few more days, or for a few more months, and then I'm back to India." He's like, I've been here for 9 years. My visa's for 10, and it's time to get back to India." And he said some pretty cool things about India. He said, um, the one thing, I'll start with the negative thing he said, which is the only negative thing he said. He said the hygiene and stuff like that is poor because of the poor um, um, sewage conditions and stuff. There's not a lot of infrastructure. However, he's like, that's the biggest downfall. There's like, tons of homes without bathrooms, without running water. And he said, but besides that, he said they're laying down right now in India 25,000 kilometers of road a day. And what that means is they're building there. I guess he was telling me they got like a new president or leader, or whatever. I'm not versed very heavily in foreign affairs, and that's why this was so interesting. He was talking about how India's doing really crazy, and he was also talking about the culture of India and how loving and supporting and willing to give and share the culture is. There's a place there that feeds tens of thousands of people every day, and people who are starving and can't afford to eat. And he said it's all through donations, and all the people cooking are volunteers, and they're just so well organized and so focused on just feeding tens of thousands of people every day, this one place. And when he said that, I think I remember watching a video on it. So if I can find a clip of it, I'll try to throw it in here. Um, but then, uh, so then he was talking about his own game plan, and he's like, it's like I've, because I was asking him about Uber too. Actually, let's finish about the India stuff first. He was telling me that, and I remember reading this a little bit. You know how countries like India, like Russia, and I believe like China, and this, there's some there's a bunch of other countries are moving away from doing business in the American dollar. So what that means is, um, if you want to buy oil, you typically have to convert whatever your money is into American dollars and then buy the oil. And then, like India's rupees, so you'd have to convert that to the Canadian or to the American dollar and then buy oil. And so that makes the American currency valuable. But India, Russia, I believe China, a bunch of other countries are like forming their own group where they'll have their own currency and they'll all trade in this currency. And that's gonna really have an impact on the American. Again, I'm not an economist or anything like that, but it's just a very interesting thing that's going on. Um, when countries do stuff like that, it's interesting how much of a global impact things like that are, especially because there are so many people over there. There's so many. The population of India and China combined got to be 2-3 billion people, if not way more. Um, we're talking billions of people, billions of people. There's 40 million people in Canada. And that's another thing I was talking to this dude about. I was like, there's nobody in this country. And he's like, yeah, there's nobody here. And he's like, that's why there's so, and this leads, he was saying there's such good opportunities to build houses because more people will be here eventually. You know, there's lots of room to build buildings. So, anyways, what this guy plans to do is he saved up a bunch of money, I guess. He's going to move back to India. They're building a gas station or something there. He has a big family house. They have a big farm. They spend very little on. He was telling me, so the cost of like a water bottle here, I think was like 300 rupees, equivalent of like $3-4 bottled water. He's like in India, he's like 30-50 rupees. It's like, you're just spending way, way less money. Things cost way, way less there because there's so many people and it's a poor country. But all the things they're doing, it seems like they're really working on their infrastructure. It really seems like um, making some interesting plays and stuff. So we'll see what happens in India. But this guy was telling me, yeah, so they're doing like a gas station and stuff, and then what this dude wants to do is eventually start building duplexes and stuff in Edmonton or in Canada. I don't know if he meant Edmonton specifically, but Canada, and then have that income coming from here, the income from the business over there. So super super interesting conversation I had, and this is going. This was I was like, man, that was interesting as hell. He was also talking about the benefits of working uh, Uber. He was saying that this guy's making 250, working 8 hours a day. He does 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening, and never works on the weekend. And he's like, it's great. Very few people. He's like, all the troublemakers are on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, and he's like, man, that's when I like to drink. So it's like no Uber for me. I was like, that's sick, bro. So very interesting conversation with this dude. Um, and then on the way back, now this is where things get wild. So I deal with all these things. I get this other Uber. I start to get back to the crib, and so I'm like, hey man, how are you? How's your day going? It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's like, yeah, I'm just kind of getting my day started. You're my first drive today. And I was like, oh, sick, awesome. And we start chit chatting and everything. It's like, how's life? How's your day? It's like good. He's like, I never used to always do Uber, but I've always kind of driven. He's like, I used to drive semi trucks and stuff. And he's like, I'm from Somalia. And I was like, okay, cool. What's and but he's telling me all kinds of stuff about just kind of his day to day life, And he's like, yeah, it's hard for me to find work because I can't do everything uh, the same way as everyone else. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And he's like, yeah, I lost my leg. And he points down, like, towards the pedals, and he has a prosthetic leg, one prosthetic leg, and one normal leg. And this dude was, and I gotta say, I'm not doing this dude justice. He's laughing and joking, and we're having a good time this whole time. Like, we're vibing. He's making jokes. He's making jokes about having his one leg. I can't even remember what this guy was saying. He had me cracking up the whole time. And these are long journeys. I'm driving from like one side of the city to the other, so these are like 40, 45 minute drives. So I'm having essentially that was another thing too. I was like, man, I wish these would have been podcast episodes. I wish I should have. But anyways. And I didn't want to ask the guy about the leg. I'm never gonna be rude. I don't know this guy, but he starts telling me, and I was like, oh, so it's like I've been married to my wife for like, I don't know, 14 years or something, and I was like, oh, so how long have you been here for? And he said, I think, or he's been married to his wife like 12 years or something, and he's been here for like 14 years. And I was like, oh, where were you before that? He's like, oh, like Somalia, and then he's like Greece, Turkey, and he starts listing all these countries. And my geography is not very good, so that's one thing he told me about, like where and I'll tell you where he's traveled, but I can't remember all the details. But I have to tell you this story. It's crazy. And so he was telling me um, about he was in Somalia and he used to drive semi trucks. He also told me that there was no driver's license where he's from. He only learned about driver's license when he got to Canada. And so he used to drive trucks in Somalia, and he said that when they're traveling like that, on top of the semi truck, they would have, 30, 40, 50 people sit on there and get transported. And and he's like, man, there's no seatbelts, there's nothing to grab onto. It's just like a way to get from point A to point B. And he said what happens though is there's Somali pirates all over the roads, and they create roadblocks. And it's a crazy story. And so he's driving this semi truck. There's all these people on top, and he sees one of the Somali pirates. His words. These are all his words. Not exactly, but barricaded ahead of him. And he said, I have like 10, 14 women on top. And he's like, I know that if I stop, that these women are going to get raped. And I was like, damn. I was like, what did you do? He's like, I drove through. He's like, I drove through the barricade. He's like, as soon as I drove through, they started shooting through my door. And I was like, damn. And he was like, yeah, man. He's like, that's what got me. He's like, that's how I lost my leg. And I was like, oh, so that's how he lost his leg. And he said, I drove. And he's like, I was losing blood, but I knew I couldn't stop because then we were screwed. And he's like, I just drove. I kept driving. And then he said, the next thing I knew is I must have passed out from the blood loss, and I drove as far as I could. And the next thing I knew was I woke up in the a hospital bed. And he said one leg was much bigger, much longer than the other one. And then he starts laughing. I was like, that's crazy, bro. It's like, thank goodness everyone just got away safely. I was like, damn, bro, use a hero, man. I hope those flies ain't. It's flies all over the camera. Where did all these flies come from? Sorry. And hey, man, these flies need to. And this is only halfway through the story. Then man says he has to leave. He has to leave this country, man. So he starts walking with one leg, and he walks all over. And you know, because he can't cross, he doesn't have any documentation, doesn't have anything. Man walks from country to country trying not to get caught. And there's lots of little details, but he's talking about, he's got two sticks, one leg, and he's just got to frickin' go. And he said he walked for 190 days. It's like up and down mountains, and he's like, man, it was hard. He's like, I would go and I'd fall. I would go and I would fall. He's talking about falling in lakes and rivers and freezing. He told me all about all these adventures over these 190 days, getting caught and being almost exported to India, where he's not from. And I think he said he finally made it to Greece. And he said Greece is gorgeous. And then eventually he got to choose. He got to choose to come to Canada or to go to the United States. And he said, I have a friend, and he said Edmonton, Alberta is a good place. He's like, so that's how I ended up here. Because I had a friend tell me. I was like, Edmonton, Alberta. And I was like, this is one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. And then he tells me, it's like, once I get to Canada, he's like, I didn't know that you needed a driver's license because I never needed a driver's license to drive before. I just knew how to drive. And he said, I got like a vehicle. And he's like, I've never seen like street lights, red, green, yellow. He's like, what does this all mean? He's like, I don't, you know, it's like, I got a car. I bought a car from somebody. Um, and I didn't know the how to drive on the roads and stuff, so I just followed this lady in front of me. And he's like, well, when she turned, I turned. When she stopped, I stopped. Blah 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 blah. It's like, I guess I followed her for too long because she phoned the police on me. And he says, the police come, and he's like, there's one behind me, but he's like, I don't know. He's like, whatever. And he's like, then there's like a whole bunch of them beside me. He's like, so then I pull over and stop. It's like, I get out of the car. He's like, they put me on the ground. They're like, why are you following her? What's going on? And he's like, hey, sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. Well, this guy spoke pretty good English, but I mean, I'm sure like he had a pretty strong accent. But he was saying, I didn't speak very good English, especially when I came. And he's like, but eventually they had someone who spoke my language and could understand me, and it was just me and him. And he's like, hey man, like, where's your driver's license? And he's like, driver's license? And then he's like, what? He's like, okay. And then, the dude apologized to the lady. He's like, I'm so sorry, like, and then it was just him and the cop that can speak his language. And he's like, okay, you know what? Follow me. You live close. I'll drive. Let's drive your car to your place, but then you got to get a license. And then he was even saying that, like, he's like, but if I catch you ever again, I'm giving you a huge, huge fine. And he's like, thank you so much. Whatever, whatever, whatever. It's like, okay. Then I go to the driver's place and the registry and to get my license. And he's like, okay, I'll take one driver's license. And whatever, he pays his money, and then the lady's like, okay, go sit at the computer because you have to take the learner's test. And he's like, I barely spoke English, blah blah blah, had no idea what was going on. It's like, it took me 9 times to pass it, but eventually I passed it, blah blah blah. Now I drive Uber. I was like, bro, you just laid down such a crazy story to me. And he's like, yeah, man. I was like, so how do you feel about Canada? He's like, oh, it's awesome. He's amazing. It's like there's so many opportunities here, and it's safe, and all of these beautiful things. And it just, man, having these conversations with these people from different parts of the world, and having their perspective, and learning about where they're from, and learning their viewpoints on Canada. It was just a very interesting two Uber rides. I mean, it was like 90 minutes of my life, but it was so fascinating. It was so inspiring. And I think it's also one of the other things that have pushed me to get more music out, create more, because I do have these opportunities. I don't have everything that I want, but I have the things that I need to keep creating and do the things that I want. And shout out to those two guys. I hope they do well, and I hope they continue to improve their situations. And it's so inspiring. You know, most people are so inspired by like these millionaires and blah 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 blah, and that's great. But it's like, man, I talked to these two dudes, and was so inspired and so motivated to just do the work, and be the best person that you can be. And it was crazy. That second guy was telling me, he's like, man, I'm gonna write a book one day. I was like, bro, you should make a movie. I'll be there, no problem. So it's been a crazy few weeks. And yeah, I feel grateful, I feel motivated, I feel focused. So um I will continue to create and move forward and do the things that I do. And yeah, it's awesome. It's also awesome just to talk to people, and and just learn people's stories. And so many people are going through so many things. And that's another thing. I was actually the first dude, the Indian business dude, was talking about. He's like, most people think I just drive Uber. It's like they don't even understand I have all of these plans in the works. And I was like, this is why you can never judge anyone doing anything, because you never know. How was I supposed to know either of these guys had such a crazy stories? But they did. But they did. Yeah, even when I was done the first Uber ride, after like 10, 15 minutes, I was like, oh, I got to talk about this dude in the podcast this week. And then I talked to the other guy, and I was like, oh my goodness, I got this is essentially what the whole podcast, this 90-minute car ride is 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 a crazy podcast. So yeah, shout out to those two dudes. More love, more success to them. So uh, you know, you're capable of doing so much more than you think. It might not be perfect, but perfectionism is killing us. I think so many of us, including myself, go out there, do your best, try, fail, succeed, sell a million albums yourself. That's my game plan, anyways. So, yeah, like I've said a million times on this podcast, the vinyl is out. $100, go pre-order it. Olympus 2 is officially released on my website. $10, go buy it. You can get the digital copy of Olympus on my website for $10,000. Go buy it. But if you don't want to do any of those, but you still want to listen to my music is still streaming everywhere: Spotify, Apple Music, all of that. And I got a new song dropping for everybody October 4th. Breathworking. Did I announce what the title is? I don't know if I did already. That's not the whole title. If I haven't said it yet, I'm not going to say it now. It will come out on Friday. All right, beautiful people. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a beautiful day, a successful week, whatever that means to you. Yeah, more love, more success. This has been A Moment with Jay.
Okay, let's get it, y'all. Sheesh.